I told you we were going to do it. The Snakebirds are back. Welcome to episode 6 of this daily design video series we call Design Over Time. Before we talked about Snakebird, we talked a little bit about the components of the game. We talked a little bit about how the game sort of creates its depth, what kind of puzzle game it is. But I told you at the end of that previous video that I really wanted to study its level design in a greater depth. So this is exactly what we're going to do on today's episode. And we've got a little bit of a stronger structure to show you. I mean, I actually jumped into some Google spreadsheets to create some graphs, so we got a lot to talk about, but really we should all be well familiar with what Snakebird is at this point. If you are not, check out the other video, but we're going to move right along, and I'm going to show you what I've been working on. So as far as design topics go, today we are exclusively going to be talking about level design, which is the arrangement of player, level, and enemy elements to create gameplay challenges, communicate ideas, or convey experiences. You know, this is the kind of thing you play, and in a puzzle game, the levels are usually broken up into these bite-sized chunks, so we're going to be talking about what kinds of things are communicated via these bite-sized chunks, but because puzzle games are typically very abstract, you know, they're not trying to tell a story, they're not trying to convey too much about a realistic world or a narrative, that the primary focus of what we're going to be talking about is what kinds of ideas the levels convey in terms of their difficulty and the kind of headspace you need to get yourself in to overcome these challenges. So this is essentially what I did. I jumped into the game and I took every level, including some of these really early levels, and I said, okay, so let's look at exactly what you need to beat these things. You know, you go, right, what is this actually challenging us to do? What is this teaching us? And even the very early levels, even the simple levels in a video game really are outlining very specific systems, rules. They're teaching us very specific things, and they're setting our expectations for the challenges and experiences to come. So this is very important. This is one of the only levels in the entire game, I think there's 2, that allow you to eat the fruit in any order you want. So if you somehow passed up this delicious, delicious banana on your way over to this mundane strawberry, you can come back around like this and get it. And I played around with this level, but there doesn't seem to be any real way to get yourself stuck. If you go into this hole backwards, you can always come back around. You can come back around like this. You can get to the warp like this. You can get to it like this, like that. So really, the level is just outlining basic movement, camera control, things that you're going to need to enjoy the rest of the game. But essentially, the approach I took for breaking down these levels starts with analyzing how to beat these levels, and then figuring out what it's teaching, what it's trying to convey, and what it's doing. So let's jump into this chart I made to show you exactly what that looks like. Do and do. So for level 1, the level I just showed you, it's called level 0. So we'll call it level 0. I gave it 3 complexity points, and that's essentially means that you know, there's 1 Snakebird, so that's 1 point. There's 2 fruit in the level, so that's 2 points here for this column. There's 0 blocks, 0 portals, 0 of everything else you might find in the game or do in the game, because as you might expect, that is the simplest and most easy level in the entire game. So you'd expect it to have a low complexity number and a low movement count too. 29, it's not exactly low. That's why this box right here is automatically shaded sort of a medium shade of blue. But as far as complexity goes, 3 is the lowest in the game, and no other level even comes close or gets low as 3. So that's our good jumping off point, that's our basis. But from here, instead of, I played the whole game over, I looked at a lot of levels, and I studied every single challenge in the entire game. But I was mainly working off of this video series by Alex. I showed it last time in the video, but I just wanted to give him another shout out. He has every single level solution in the game in one convenient video, and he worked really hard to get the solutions to be as efficient as possible. So that was a great piece of information. It's a great video. It's a great point of reference to build this level design analysis out of, because at least from this perspective, all the levels are not going to have any extraneous movements. They're going to be pretty focused on solving it. And even though he does a few interesting tricks to get the moves down to be as small as possible, for the most part, we're able to see exactly what you need to do to beat each level. And this video is what powered my analysis. So let's go over one more level and see how the graph shakes out. Let's go to level 3. Okay. So this level, you cannot eat the strawberry first, you'll be stuck. Where's my back button? Okay. And then if you come over here, you have to eat this one, but then you gotta figure out how to get back around. The trick with this level is, this maneuver that I kind of did unconsciously is the trick of the level. Learn it, because if you try to go any other way, your body will fall on the spikes, so you have to go out and down and around. So I gave this particular move because this is so tricky. I mean, this is the level that kind of tripped up Patrick Kleplik. Shout out to him for making a Snakebird video and trying to show people how cool this game is. But this little trick right here, this move, the difference between this and this is very distinct because, like we said before in the other video, the shape of your bird, gravity, space, all of that matters when we're playing and solving these challenges. So in this case, you have to think ahead and say, okay, gravity and shapes happen at the same time on the simultaneous move, and that's something that requires you to think about those two different gameplay aspects at once and plan your move ahead accordingly. So that's why this particular level is trickier than it looks. That's why this level trips up a lot of people. And figuring out that you can't eat the strawberry first teaches you a lot of lessons about sequencing and what you need to get in and out of things, and looking at obstacles and figuring out what you need to get around them. Like, that's not enough, so clearly you can't eat this fruit first. So while there's a lot of ways to do this wrong, I mostly focused on what you need to get it right. In this move in particular, I had to call it something. So let's jump back into the spreadsheet right here. So we're looking at level 3, and I have a very specific entry for when gravity is a part of the solution and a double move. And what I call a double move is exactly kind of what I explained, is when two things in the game are moving simultaneously, whether it's an object, two birds, or your movement as in your shape, and because of gravity you fall into a very particular orientation. So let's go over the rest of these things and just talk it through. We all get counting the basic number of elements in the stage. This is just very simple. You look at the number of elements, you count them. Some levels have lots of fruit, like this level here has 7. Some levels have more than one bird. The multiple bird levels start here with 2. Some levels have blocks and portals, but for the most part, the number of elements in each stage stay at a pretty conservative amount. I mean, this is the secret level that has tons of fruit. I'll show you that. This level. So yeah, this is a very rare and unique level in the game. It has tons of fruit. It has 26 fruit total, but most levels do not get nearly up to this number of unique interactable elements. Most levels are composed of roughly 8 unique elements, including the birds, fruits, the blocks, and the warps, the portals, if you will. So even though this level is unique, you know, eating fruit, getting longer, we can not worry too much about that and how it plays out. Okay. So Snakebird orientation and head direction. This is something that I want to outline right here. I'll go back into the game. So like I said before, the orientation of your Snakebird matters. And even though the game looks like you can just go left and right easily, you cannot. Okay, so this is a classic level I showed you last time, but you know, you can't just go left and right. In order to turn back around, you have to go up and around, and that changes the way your tail moves, and that changes the way you move through a shape. So what I call this basic situation is an issue where orientation matters. You have to go into this hole with the correct orientation, and in this case, it's orientation and gravity, because you fall back down and give yourself space to move. So whenever there's a situation where you have to figure out which way your head faces, left or right, before going into it and engaging with it, I call that orientation. If you have to figure out, if you have to be conscious of what your tail is doing whenever you're making a maneuver, whether your tail is really long or really short, I just put a number in this column. We talked about gravity, we talked about the double move. Bird lift, I'll show you some examples of that. We can just go to the first level that does it, which is 7. So this is the first level where you have to do a bird lift, and it's the first level in the game that you have more than one bird. So clearly, you know, lift up bird, move bird over, that's a bird lift. And you lift other objects in this game, but that's the basic idea. It's a very distinct mental concept, and it's one that it's used quite a lot throughout the game, and it gets pretty tricky because you can lift quite a lot of objects with one bird, so stacking it up becomes quite a thing. You can use stuff like this. This is what I call making a bird bridge. So it's different from lifting, but whenever you have a suspended platform and another bird uses it to get to a necessary area, that's what I call a bird bridge. So going back to the chart, you know, there's bridges, lifts, and then there's the head-to-head push. Let's go down to the first level that does that. It's 14. But I'll essentially show you on this level, even though it's not necessary. But a push is horizontal. So let's say I do this, and then the blue bird comes and pushes like that. That's a push. Horizontally oriented push, you push objects and birds. So whenever you go into a portal, we want to count that. We want to count all the times that you can teleport. We also want to count the times that you block a teleport, because that's a really interesting thing that happens in this game, where you can manipulate your shape and not teleport, and then manipulate it again to teleport. So that was a really interesting level that showed that off pretty nicely. And the last thing is, you know, what I call simple machines. When you use multiple snakebirds or multiple objects to create a car, a lever, you encase an object and use your own body to both hold it up and push it, you know, like a snake constricting on something, or you create a stack of things and you're moving multiple objects simultaneously. That's exactly the kinds of complex machines that are possible in Snakebird, because of all of its moving parts and all the interesting things that it does. So this is what I mean by a complex machine. Right now, there's no way to get across all of these spikes without having red being a particular formation that allows blue to ride on top. But because I made it into the shape and red is suspended by that block, blue has the ability to push from behind and get us all across without dying. So that's a very complex machine. It's possible because of the way friction and physics work in this game, and there's many different examples of different machines like that, but that's just what I love about Snakebird. That is the final slot on this spreadsheet, and as you can see, if we look through all the levels, you can just see by the color coding that the darker the color, the higher the number. So as I slowly scroll down, you see some levels have some standout situations like the 6 here. The move count gets higher and higher. The dark blue color means a higher move count. The darker the red color means the more complex or difficult based on all these things we're tracking. And as you see, you go down, more and more levels have more and more of these diverse 4 sets of elements. More snakebirds, more fruit, more blocks. But there's no level in the game that contains all 4 portals, blocks, fruit, and snakebirds. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought the last level in the game would feature all of them, but you know, it doesn't, so that's all we can do. So as we look through all this data, as you can see, the lower we get, some of the last levels in the game are quite deep in the green. You can see they stress so many different types of these concepts we know over. And these concepts are super important for understanding how puzzle games work. Because if you approach this game as a mere trial and error machine, and you go in any level and you start messing with things, you're going to realize very quickly that you're going to be stuck, you're not going to know what to do, and it really makes solving puzzles a really frustrating experience. And I want to get into a whole thing about learning and chunking and puzzle design later, but for now we're just looking at what it would look like if you understood the entire game in terms of these chunks, in terms of these high level concepts. So that's why this chart is pretty convenient. As you go down, look at some of these levels. 48, which is one of the star levels in the game. 6, 6, 7. You do so much lifting, so many bridges and platforms, and so much head-to-head pushing when you're manipulating these blocks and fruits with 3 snakebirds. Like, this level is quite complex, and this is why it's complex. Not only are you doing more things in the level because it has a score of 33, not only are you doing more things, not only does it take you 115 moves in an efficient manner to get it done, but some of the moves that you do are these really complex ones. So I arranged this list of things at the top from here down in order of intuitiveness, so everybody understands moving in this game. Everybody understands that, you know, you have to snake around yourself, so that's a basic thing. But it goes all the way and it gets more and more complex till at the end you're talking about creating these crazy machines and snake cars and all of that. So the deeper the green is and the further it is to the right over here, that means the puzzle is really stressing some more complex concepts, and they're stressing more of them. So that's one of the primary reasons why this game gets difficult, because you have to understand so many more interactive pieces than just move your snake to the goal. So yeah, there's some standout levels, but ultimately, as we can see the trend on the side, I'll just scroll back up, starts with a really light color in terms of complexity, gets darker and darker, gets a little bit lighter in very specific parts. Check this out. Right when you introduce a new object, the game's difficulty / complexity gets lighter. Obviously, you want to introduce something new. You start out with some easy levels, and it gets darker as you go down. The move count also starts light and gets darker as you go down. That says a lot about puzzle game design. It says a lot about what Snakebird has going for it. But you know, people think this is a really hard game. Some people think it's hard because, I mean, if you try to approach any puzzle game that's deep like this with trial and error or just kind of jumping in and making moves blindly, you're probably going to get stuck. But using this data, we can really point out some interesting things about how the actual game and its levels are designed. So this graph shows as the levels go from 0 to 50, which is on the bottom x-axis, as the move count gets greater for solving these levels, so too does the complexity, which is all the things we tallied up. So in general, the more moves that you do, the more complex maneuvers you also have to do. And another way of showing this is in a correlation or scatter plot, which shows correlation much more simply right here. And that's a positive correlation. That's like that 45-degree angle line, which means like almost step for step as the levels get more complex, they also have more and more complexity in terms of conceptual solving steps. So this is really important for understanding why Snakebird is such a well-designed game. But you can see from the difficulty, the blue line shows the dips and the introductions of new concepts much more clearly. But ultimately, the whole game is steadily getting more complex until the very end when it's significantly more complex. But another interesting thing that we can understand by looking at the data is that there is a lack of correlation between the raw number of elements in the level and its ultimate complexity. And I think this is a really great way to articulate, define, and show people why Snakebird is a deep game. So let's look at this final graph. I said before that Snakebird's level design was pretty conservative, right? They didn't go crazy and put a whole bunch of stuff in the level. There's like 2 levels in the game that have like 26 fruits or more fruit than normal, but ultimately most of the levels are really simple, really straightforward, single screen challenges right there in front of your eyes. So what does that really mean? If you look at the data right here, the complexity, this blue line right here is the complexity points. I'll make it red because why not? So this is the graph we're talking about. The red is the difficulty, and as you can see, as the game progresses, it gets more and more difficult and then drops for some of these introductions of new elements with the relatively easy tutorial levels. But you can see here the number of fruit, everything else is represented on the graph. The number of snakebirds in each level, 1 to 3. The number of fruit in each level, see the spike for that one crazy level I showed you. And then the number of blocks, movable elements and the such like that. And then the number of portals. And there's only ever 1 pair of portals in the stage. It's something that I realized after doing this count. But if you look down at the bottom, you can see this little spaghetti, right? You're like, oh, some levels have more of this, some levels have more of that. I'm going to change this color. Okay, so you can see at the bottom, it's just random. Some levels have almost all the elements in the game, all 4 key elements. Some levels only have 1, like this one right here. This one only has multiple snakebirds. This one has snakebirds and blocks, but no warps, no portals. This one has portals, but no fruit, right? Like this, just about every combination you can think of. But you can see, no matter what it looks like down at the bottom, the difficulty of the level just goes up and down however it wants, right? Even this crazy spike in the number of fruits doesn't make a crazy spike in the difficulty compared to the levels around it. So it really seems like there's no correlation between the number of snakebirds, the number of movable elements, the number of portals, and the number of fruit in the level that determines its overall complexity. And this is what we mean by depth. With a relatively conservative and fixed number of complexity, the actual difficulty, the concepts that you have to learn and apply and figure out the sequence of and execute on varies as widely as the game has the easy levels and difficult levels. You really cannot tell just by looking at a level how hard it's going to be. Just by counting its elements. You can't say, oh, it's a 3-bird level, this level's going to be super hard, it could be pretty easy. Or like, oh, only 1 fruit, this level's got to be easy, don't have to worry about sequencing, could be one of the hardest levels in the game. Really hard to say. And that's what it's just all a testament to the fact that the core dynamics of Snakebird, 2D space, and how all these elements seem so simple but interact in such dynamic ways. So, I hope you really enjoyed this detailed look at Snakebird's level. It was great to go back over all the levels and look at it again. It was a lot of fun. I really got to compare how I played the game and what I remembered to exactly what the levels break down to be. And it was really cool. I encourage you to do the same. If you have any questions, if you have any additions, if you have any suggestions, send them down in the comments or get back to me on Twitter. You can find us at Design Oriented or me at KirbyKid, and I will do my best to get back to you within the week. Hopefully some of your answers are so good I get to make a video about it, because this whole conversation needs to keep rolling. That's all we have for today. This has been Design Oriented. Special thanks to Alex again for making that awesome Snakebird video, and we will see you tomorrow on Design Over Time.